pew, 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 pew. Howdy, partners. Parlay Pete here to tell all you rustlers, hustlers, and low-life degenerates how easy it is to bang out massive parlays without knowing a thing about the games you're betting on. Come on down to the Odd Shopper Saloon and check out their parlay builder tool. Darn tootin', I wrangled myself over 300 buckaroos on a 67% ROI using their tool in February. So don't dilly-dally now. Check out the show notes and use our link when you register. I'm no slang wanger here, so give us a shout once you register and we're happy to show you the ropes.
We can't lose. No, we can't lose.
Enjoy it while it lasts. Gambling gods, fickle bunch. Oh yeah, so easily
We
affected.
have a shooter and a good one coming out for a new point. Get your bets down, ladies and gentlemen. He's a rolling point is 9, place 9, 9 a winner. Got a hot hand. Place your bets, ladies and gentlemen.
They bet on absolutely anything. Don't make them prove it.
I drink the fancy whiskey, the expensive whiskey, and it depends on how I did that week. And so I was having a lot of nice rituals with the fancy whiskey by the end of the year.
You're tuned into Gambling with Good JuJu.
Welcome in, everybody, to Gambling with Good JuJu, where the debate rages on whether to use our free bets on NCAA tournament, next year's NFL season, or simply converting them to cash like a stiff.
Boo.
RJ. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and all that and more to the show on your favorite podcast platform. Give us a follow at Good JuJu Bets on X, where we do pay attention to the account. Let's ride. This week on the show, we're being joined by Sharp Clarke of at Sharp Clarke NFL on Twitter. He is an NFL originator who has profited 3 out of his last 4 years. He was even that 4th year, no matter what he says, and continues to grow within the space as a respected mind betting NFL sides, totals, and futures. But before we get to Clarke, we need to discuss a couple of gambling trips we made the last couple weeks. And we're playing our first ever game of Breezy's Data Deep Dive Discussion game. What is that, you ask? It's where I take advantage of plus EV offers from consumer research companies and tap into their software to see if they have any interesting insights on the world of sports gambling. This week, we're pleased to have taken Civic Science up on their generous offer to spam my email with a free 30-day trial for their new AI tool, Sage. Being the coupon clipper I am and having the background not really necessary to run this kind of project, we decided to turn it into a segment for the show. So I'll be quizzing the fellas on general demographics of sports gamblers in the United States. Fun stuff.
I am so excited to see where I net out on this.
I'm going to win.
Should we bet on it?
Absolutely.
All right. Before we get into today's topics, can we talk Sean Perry for a second?
I
Please.
have no idea who this guy is.
I was trying to talk to him about Sean Perry like last week, and he's just looking at me like, who is this?
You haven't followed any of this? Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you
I
not
am,
following this.
I am deep down this rabbit hole.
I don't know what's on Kurt's Twitter. It's probably weirder than ours, but it doesn't have Sean Perry, so good job.
Oh my God, I can't only imagine.
For those who are curious, so Sean Perry is no longer on Twitter.
That happened yesterday, right?
That happened yesterday.
Nuked his account.
Sean Perry is an individual I had never heard of until the Circa Survivor competition,
Yes.
where he was one of 11 individuals left, and 10 of them had agreed to a chop,
Yep.
and he was the only one who did not, and then he lost. He didn't win. That's fine. Like, I don't know if he's a good poker player or a good gambler or what he is,
Right.
but he got really brash about it. On
Yeah.
the Twitters.
He said,
very vain.
I'm the greatest gambler ever. Why on earth would I give some of this money back to these guys?
Yeah.
Right? Basically, that was the gist of it.
And then he went on a very cold streak and made very large wagers publicly that did not win, made a bunch of claims about being banned from casinos that the casinos themselves were like, no, you're not. Go bet.
Please, come bet.
Please,
Yours.
come bet. We would love it. He bet heavy on the San Francisco 49ers. Kurt, I'm sorry. Maybe we do blame him. Maybe he ruined the Good JuJu by betting on them, and that's why they didn't win.
When I find this guy.
You think that's bad? He bet on the Bills the week before when Tyler Bass missed that kick for $1 million or whatever.
What a musher.
What a yeah, I thought I was bad.
So after all this, then a week later, like he didn't delete the Twitter account right away. He must have tried to get it back, and
Something happened. Yeah,
he just kept losing.
got tired of it, I guess.
So we're gonna ask Sharp Clarke to weigh in on that
Sure. Yeah,
a
that's
little
fine.
bit. Interesting stuff. It's just kind of funny.
So I actually, the algorithm cooked and got me into Sean Perry's YouTube presence, which is fascinating. On top of that,
Was this recently? Or?
yeah, it was like
Wow.
last week.
Okay. And what's that like?
It's like I watch everything about Las Vegas and or gambling, so it was ready to show me this stuff. And at first, I wasn't even putting together who it was, but like some guy shows up and he's like, "Oh, I got a call. We got to go to Vegas and meet the best sports bettor in the world." And then it's like that's when he bets on the San Francisco 49ers and loses. And it's like this whole production, and he's like, "Let me call Offset," like who's like a famous rapper. It's like, "See, I told you I'm the best. He's betting with me for $1 million a game." And it's like, this guy's obviously paid to make this video, and like he's got a following. And then it's like, "Hey, you want to watch another one of this same exact video?" And this other guy makes the same exact goddamn video about the Buffalo Bills game. Even to where it's like, "Hey, I got to call Offset. Look, it's Offset. He bets $1 million a game with me." And I'm like, "You seriously made the same exact video twice and lost both of these games?" So that was kind of wild. And he is definitely deep. Who's showing the rope is our boy Mickey Mace for sure. Because he's in all of these videos too. Like, "Stop saying lock of the day. You're a good gambler. You're not one of these scam artists." And it's like, oh, wow, this is neat.
Who?
The Mickey Mace guys.
Mickey Mace.
Yeah. We've probably touched on him before, but so you got a totally different algorithm than I do too. We'll cover him on a later topic.
So what do you think? Is he just embarrassed or did he go broke?
I don't think he went broke. So I did look up 6.8 million lifetime reported poker earnings.
It's not bad.
That's for, some
Is
years.
that profit?
Well, who
No.
knows, right? Yeah,
So who knows how much he bet?
sure.
Like my FanDuel will show you earnings that are unreal,
Yes.
but my profit is a completely different thing.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if the guy's broke. I don't know if the guy's a scam artist. I don't think he's a very good sports betting tout.
I don't think he follows a 1% unit size.
I definitely don't think so. In one of the videos, he does go, "I've never lost a bet on the Super Bowl." Just like, okay.
Great. Thanks, bud. Appreciate you.
All right, folks. So just make sure you know who you're following. And I think that Clark does a good job of breaking down some of the things you want to look for when you're identifying those people you want to really put your trust in. So,
Okay, real quick. One last bit. I did try to find his Wikipedia page, and he doesn't have an English version of his Wikipedia page. It only shows up in German. Isn't that...
I do not expect Sean Perry to deserve a Wikipedia.
Why does he have one in German?
He must have a super fan over there.
It must have a super fan over there. Yeah. I think he gave them $1 million to take his Twitter Wikipedia page down.
All right, folks, we've hit a little bit of a slow time in the year with the Super Bowl behind us, March Madness not really kicking off. We're in the dredges of the NBA and the NHL season. So we've been looking to mix things up a little bit on our side of things and have fun in different ways with our gambling. We had the pleasure of taking part in a couple of different events that we're going to do a quick run through and try to encourage everyone to go
Replicate.
Good luck replicating as much fun as we have.
No, we want to encourage everyone to go find one of these events. This first event is specifically what's on my mind. So first of all, for those of you who are unaware, there is this event called a smoker. Now, let's give a quick rundown.
Is that what everybody calls it?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's give a quick rundown.
Okay.
What is a smoker?
Oh, okay.
Well, dictionary.com provides a definition for us here that fits our activity. A smoker is an informal gathering, especially for men, for entertainment, discussion, or the like.
That checks. That's exactly what we did.
Now, in our particular circumstance, we partake in these smokers at our grade school gymnasium. Has anyone else ever done that? I don't know, but that's what we do.
That's what we do every year.
Now, what is this smoker that we attend every year? Well, it's a 5-hour event in our grade school gym that offers a variety of gambling games, brats, German potatoes, and a number of drawings for prizes, along with beer and soda and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
It's one of the more randomly degenerate things you can find on a religious property in the entire world. And I'm not sure who was like, yeah, let's rent out a Catholic grade school gymnasium. Well, I'm like, when would this have started? Like in the 1800s? Someone's like, I got an idea.
Before the gyms.
Like, what is this? Post World War II? We're sitting around going, man, I don't know what to do anymore.
I don't know, but I used to help set that thing up for service hours, and we actually like put together little ashtrays so you could smoke there.
No.
In the school.
So that's going back 30 years.
Yeah.
We don't actually have that allowed anymore. So anyways, okay. So we got to get this back on track here.
All right.
So the Smoker's an event where you go gamble for charity. It's for the kids. It's for the school. They use it to benefit that. So our school Smoker is held in our school gymnasium. And let me tell everyone needs to appreciate grade school gymnasium architecture. Our school's is gorgeous. And it's one reason I make my family go to different fish fries around the Peoria area all the time, just so that I can see the different gyms around the Peoria area.
Right.
So, all right, let's move forward. Let's talk about this specific event we went to and stop rambling about it overall. We go to this event and we decide to gamble and we're having a good time and we get down there and there is a whole lot of games set up. RJ, why don't you give us a quick run through of the games that are available to us at a Smoker?
Absolutely. At our particular Smoker, yes. You might find a different Smoker in your area. But first up, blackjack, the crowd pleaser, the backbone of the function. You probably know how this game works, except it's totally rigged and ties lose.
Yes. Ties lose, you do not win, or you do not push on a tie at a religious Smoker.
Now, they've also got poker. Absolutely never tried that. Sick Bow, which is a zany dice game, which apparently is a real thing they do in other countries, where you guess which number is going to show up on the dice in this little bottle shaker thing. 3-card poker. Never seems like anybody's really doing that.
They have an empty 3-card poker table?
Pretty much, yeah. Then we got the traditionals, the tip boards, the 50-50s, the raffles, the elusive wheelbarrow of booze you can win, which I didn't even see this year, but I bought a ticket for it.
Yeah, it was claimed.
And then the new addition this year, which I didn't try because it looked a little stressful, was the ship captain and crew table, jam-packed the whole time. But my personal favorite, street craps, although slightly modified this year to be even more scammy. Is my favorite game, obviously.
Okay, let's get into this.
Let's cut to the chase.
Okay, blackjack, poker, sick bow, 3-card poker, traditional, blah, 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 blah. We play 2 games. We play blackjack and we play street craps.
Bingo.
And let me tell you, one is the best game to play at a Smoker, and one is the absolute worst, yet you still make us play it. And that event is craps. Here's why craps at a Smoker is so awful. Okay, people, you know how you bet against the casino and you bet against the house? Well, at a Smoker craps table, you bet against everyone else who's gambling. So you put down as much money as you're willing to risk on rolling a 0.7, and then everyone after that, or rolling either your point or a 7.
Yeah.
And then everyone after you gets to take as much of your action as they want. So if you throw down a 20, the next person puts down 5, the next one after that, 5, 5, 5.
Yep.
You're now betting against 4 people to hit your number. And that is not fun. What's fun is standing at a craps table and cheering with people as you go along to play, unless you're Kurt doing the Vader. So then the worst part about it is you're not happy if you win or lose. Because in RJ's circumstance, he took all of Kurt and I's money.
He sure did.
And he wasn't sitting over there happy. He looked embarrassed.
It was a little embarrassing.
So I don't know why we play that when street craps is dumb. And here's what else happens on the rollout. If you roll a 2, a 3, or a 12, everyone loses.
Yeah.
Not only the roller, but the people who bet against the roller. It all goes to the church.
To the kids. To the kids.
Not a fun game. I'm not in it. Meanwhile, blackjack is the most hilarious game there because they make it super rigged against us, but then all the dealers don't understand how much of an advantage they give to you by just being people instead of dealers.
Correct. They let me split. They let me double down or split. What'd they let me split?
I don't know.
Yeah. The rules are crazy. They'll let you get away with anything.
You can split anything you want. You can double down at any point you want. The dealers will give you hints about what they have in their hand.
But ties lose.
And half the time you have to tell them whether they owe you money or you owe them money.
Yeah, it's true.
So at the end of it, you're sitting there going, okay, I have an 18 with an ace. I think I'm good. And then he goes over and he goes, hey, just so you know,
Take a card.
I'm strong. And so you're sitting on 18 with an ace and you're like, all right, well, I guess I'll take a card. And everyone goes, what are you doing? And it's a 3. And you go, okay, well, I beat his 19. So we're good.
So I win.
Because the dealer is telling you how strong he is.
Fun game.
When you can get into those kinds of settings and have fun with people and you know what you're doing, you can actually walk away with a profit, which is what I do most years, but not this year.
When you play craps with the old juice man.
Yeah, it's absolutely hilarious when one of the dealers is 15 beers deep and he just walks over and he's just like, did I pay you? It's like, yeah, you
Nope.
Well, sometimes no. Sometimes, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You already paid me.
I keep them all honest, and I give the money back when they pay on accident. But yeah,
I think one of the funniest things about the smoker is that in the middle of the whole gym, they have 4 massive tubs just filled with beers all along. And then over in the corner of the gym, they have one tiny cooler with water in it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I get it. I get what we're really doing here.
If you ever wanted to drink 20 plus beers somewhere,
that's your place.
That's
to do
your
it.
place to do it.
$30, all the beer you can drink,
All the beer you can drink.
and brats.
I think my favorite part is the amount of times you would hear someone start swearing, cussing, or in other ways acting extremely vulgar, and the dealer would just be like, "Oh, hey, priest,"
Yeah,
and everyone would be like, "Oh, shit."
Remember, stop being assholes for the kids.
So it's a really fun, wild, weird experience. Is it fun? You should all try to find one in your area and
Yeah.
go with a couple buddies. Don't expect to make money, but expect to have one of the most randomly good times of your year.
Good
And
entertainment.
you can generally find them in late February. I'd ask around and see if you can find yourself to one. Here's the thing that I'll say about it. Look, I'm very involved with our school, am I not?
You're very involved.
I didn't know 90% of the people there.
Right.
So it's not, it pulls in degenerates. It doesn't pull in
All are
the
welcome.
church community.
Yeah.
So, all right. There's one other trip we want to talk before we get into our game. We went to the Celtics Bulls game last week. Not jolly. And who cares? Because we went to 3 different casinos up in Chicago while we were there.
yes.
And we had a pretty good time.
Not bad.
So let's do a quick casino report. We went east to west and found out just how big a range there is in casinos in the Chicago area. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
So we started off heading over to Indiana. We did that so that we could bet on the Illini to win the national championship and make our way east to west. We went to the Harrah's in Hammond. And I will say that casino looks dead on arrival, like George said. It is not a lot of people in there. Not a lot of attention or care paid to the facility in general.
Yeah, a lot of machines were broken, and
That blows my mind.
yeah,
Because, like, I've been going to Hammond for 10, 15 years.
yeah, play
And-
poker.
To play poker, yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. 10 years ago, that place was immaculate. It looked like the Venetian.
Yeah, it's a neat looking place, but I couldn't find a Tito machine that worked outside of next to the cashier,
That's
which totally defeated the
That's
purpose.
crazy.
I wasted about a half hour putting money into a bubble craps machine and then unable to get my money out of the bubble craps machine.
Unbelievable.
So, but let me say, what it lacked in niceness, maybe it made up for in character. And I think I had my best time at that particular casino. I loved the people there. We went to a craps table and we ended up playing craps for 1 roller. Did we even do it?
Literally one roller.
1 roller. And the most amazing thing happens. We get there and there's a couple of individuals to my left and the dice just passed me. So 1 goes. And then this next lady gets up and she starts rolling the dice and she starts going, "Oh no, this isn't me. This is me. I can't do this. I can't do this." She hits her point. She rolls an 11 and then she just yells out, "Pass."
I've never seen that before.
So she passes the dice. The dude then goes on a heater.
Hits it.
Not even necessarily a heater for those playing the 6 and 8.
Right.
A heater for hitting every number.
Yeah.
He starts going for the all, tall, small. We get down to 2 numbers left. And let me tell you something. These individuals to my left, they needed the all, tall, small. Look, I don't advocate for gambling your paycheck to feed your family, but watching it work is amazing. Because he had the 6 and the 9 left, and he goes boom 9 on the first one, boom 6 on the second one, hits the all tall small, and the 2 people standing to my left, the lady in particular who passed the dice, lose their minds. She's running around screaming, talking about, I'm going straight home. I am going straight home. I ain't going nowhere else. I am going straight home.
Very animated.
And she's just screaming it and running around. And it was the coolest thing that I've ever seen watching a casino game. Never minding that while all this is going on, there's the oldest man in the world to my right, sitting there, writing down every single thing that's happening on this craps table.
Yeah, graphing it out on.
So while they're paying everyone out, I lean over to this older gentleman and I go, "What are you doing?" I first I said, "Sir, can I ask you a question?" "Yes." "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Well, I'm keeping track of everyone's rolls." And I go, "Why?" And he goes, "Well, I've been doing this for 50 years and tracking everyone rolls. There are good shooters and there are bad shooters." And I go, "Do you actually make money doing this?" And he just looks at me and goes, "Well, I've been doing it for 50 years. And I just looked at him. I said, "Sir, it's a pleasure. Thank you for answering my question. Have a great rest of your day." And he looks at me and he goes, "I have a question for you." And I go, "Yes." And he says to me, "Why are you leaving so quickly?"
Well, it's going to take 45 minutes to pay out everybody at this table on this all small crap. And then it's going to take 45 minutes to set it back up. And we got a basketball game to get to. And
Never
2 more
mind,
casinos.
2 more casinos. So after that, we barely ended up even gambling there.
Right.
The people were awesome. The casino itself needs some work.
Bro, keep it on the sky wheel.
So then we go over to Chicago and we go to Ballys. That's the new casino downtown Chicago.
Brand new temporary casino.
It was exactly what I expected.
Yeah.
Going into a place where you have hardly any competition. You're surrounded by travelers, people popping in and out. You're not getting that friendly service.
You
You're
didn't
not
like
getting.
it.
I didn't.
No.
Did you?
No.
No. It was very artificial. I mean, do we even need to discuss the parking situation?
Absolutely not. I don't ever want to relive that.
Oh my gosh, it was a nightmare just getting out of there because he converted, instead of a free chip play for signing up, he goes, "Okay, I'll take the free parking." And then he couldn't figure out how to get the actual parking figured out. So he ends up wandering
And
around
nobody
there
else
once. Then we go up to the car and then he's like, "Well, let's just try
Wait,
it."
we're not discussing it.
So we go back down and then I end up parking illegally so we can run back into the casino and get it figured out. And it's
third
that
time.
kind of experience. Look, Bally's, downtown Chicago. If you want a good experience there, I'm sure it'll be fun if you're there for the night and you need a casino.
Yeah. And they are building like a complex, which will be neat. And shout out them for giving me a hell of free play. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's awesome because you have diamond status at Caesars and I don't, so I got nothing. So cool.
I got the free parking for you, pal.
Great. So enough about that, Bally's. Look, it's the new casino in
Yeah, it was
Chicago.
fine.
If you're
It was
down there,
fine.
go check it out. It
A lot
is
of people.
not our vibe.
Played with a deaf blind guy.
That was cool. Let's talk about that for a second. We got to talk about that.
All
for
right,
a
let's
second.
do it real quick.
There was a deaf blind guy at our table playing blackjack. He comes up and he's with a person who's bringing him his
Helping him out. Yeah.
His helper. And his helper does all his betting for him. This helper has never played blackjack before.
I don't think she knows
So
the
he
rules.
sits down and he wants to play, but he can't see the cards. He can't hear anyone. And I don't know that he knows he's in a casino. And so they start dealing to him. And then she is the worst blackjack player. She doesn't know what the game is. Like,
Yeah.
she's like 18 and then she's not trying to like play it. She's trying to interpret what he's saying, but all he's doing is shaking violently. And like, you don't know if his shaking is I want a card or not. He can't see the cards.
I don't even know what he has.
And instead of anyone sitting there with him and going through it and just being like, hey, you have a 7 and an 8. That makes 15. The dealer's showing a 4. What do you want to do? They just look at him.
Yeah.
And it's like, are we supposed to help him? But she's like, no. I got it. And she's like, oh, he wants to hit. And he's got like a 19. And there's a 6 showing.
And all right.
The pit boss is behind the dealer. He's like, I don't think we can let them take that. Like, he needs to not bet that.
Yeah. The table's already ice cold. Like, go to the ATM and get money type of cold. And then Steve's trying to help. And she's like, hey, mind your business. It's like, okay, sorry.
Unbelievable.
It was the most,
And so he loses 4 straight hands.
Of course.
And then, all right, well, that was fun. Let's go.
Yeah, I'll see you later, pal.
I have no idea what was happening there. I don't know why it was happening, but it was one of the more fascinatingly hilarious situations I've ever come.
Only in Chicago.
So then we went to the casino that we want to tout, I would say.
Shout out.
Rivers Casino in Des Plaines. Is that the best casino in Illinois?
I reckon.
I
reckon
can't
Parlay
think
Pete.
of a single casino that's even close. They had $10 craps accessible at 10:30 p.m. on a Thursday night.
And not just open, but like wide open.
I've never seen so many open table games in one spot. I mean, they're ranging from $10 to $25 tables. Like, as far as the eye can see, there's a dirty baccarat room in the back of it. Like, full on. Like, what is this doing here?
Wow.
It was amazing.
I didn't even see that.
Oh, it was wild. I walked through it. I thought maybe you guys were just standing around watching everyone there. Super clean, super nice.
10
really,
craps tables, 10 or 8 craps tables, something like that.
yeah, really accessible
Yeah.
to us. So also anyone flying into O'Hare right there. So,
Yeah, there you go.
It's right there. I want to go back.
Yeah.
Out of all the casinos, anyone needs a recommendation for a casino in Chicago, I do recommend Rivers Casino in Des Plaines.
No hotel.
Oh, we went to a game too.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we actually went up there to go to the Celtics Bulls game. The Celtics rolled. I made a bunch of money. I think Juice lost money. Kobe White steal, no big deal. Tatum's late run, no big deal.
Well, I don't indifferent on if I won or lost money on the game. But I met Sam Hauser's parents and grandparents.
Oh, yeah,
the highlight of the game.
You got to meet Sam Hauser's
That
parents.
was fantastic. They were so excited to introduce themselves to me, of all people.
Are they going to be tuning into the show this week?
You know what? I don't know. I sent a LinkedIn extension and saw that my account was viewed, but not accepted.
Okay. Well, now you know.
Yeah, I don't think they're coming on.
Anyway, I would sign up for that day all over again.
Absolutely.
Going up to Chicago, hitting a few casinos, going to a Celtics game. It was phenomenal. Kurt, you really missed out. What a bummer.
What a bummer. It's always next year.
Right.
Moving on. All right. Last topic of the day. Who is the sports gambler here in the United States? What a hyper niche topic, boys.
I am in.
Why would we talk about this? Because I, Breezy, I'm a dork. I spent 17 years in consumer marketing research, and let me tell you something. For about 3 more months, I remain one of the most informed individuals in this country in macro factors impacting the U.S. food service market.
Wow.
I remain somewhat interested in my life that was the field of market research, and last month I received an offer from Civic Science, a really cool research company that does neat stuff, to trial their new AI tool for a month. I took them up on that offer with the specific intent of seeking out whatever information I could collect on U.S. gamblers. That's right, let's talk in extremely generic terms about the shape of the U.S. sports gambling consumer and draw unreasonable conclusions because we lack the resources to dive further into these trends.
Sounds like the 2020 episode. 60 minutes or whatever.
Now, rather than turn this into a boring lecture from me, we're going to play a game. I have given you each a list of survey questions, and you have taken a stab at guessing what the correct percentages are. Closest to the number gets a point. Most points wins the first ever Breezy Data Deep Dive Discussion game. This event's category, sports gamblers. Who are we? All right, gentlemen, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I absolutely am ready.
You sound like it. All right. Fun fact to start this game. Question number 1. What percentage of the U.S. population says they have watched at least one sporting event in the last 30 days? Kurt.
Well, Parlay Pete, I'm going to go with 64%.
Ryan.
In the last 30 days, counting the day the Super Bowl was on, 90%. Okay.
I don't know the time frame.
Sure. I
wouldn't
know.
highly
I know you
rely
don't.
on that.
I know you don't. That's my answer. Final answer.
60% of the population has
Wow.
watched at least one sporting event in the last 30 days, meaning 40% of the population has not. Talk about a group of people I would never want to be trapped in an elevator with. Point Curtis. Question number 2. What percent of the population has never placed a sports wager? Kurt.
Well, Parlay Pete, I'm going to go with 87%.
Ryan.
80%.
Ryan, point to you. 69% of the population has never placed a sports wager, but that means that 31% of the population has. Not
Interesting.
Too bad. Not too
Interesting.
bad.
That surprises me.
Point, RJ. Question number 3. Let's dive deeper here. And with every deep dive, we deepen the deal. That's right. We're giving out 1.5 points for closest to the pin on these next set of questions.
Oh, this is getting good.
Question number 3. What percent of males bet on the sport? We're going to go RJ first.
40%.
Kurt.
Well, Parlay Pete, looks like we got a tiebreaker because I got 40%.
Whoa.
And that's not too bad of a guess, boys. 37%
Wow.
of males bet on sports. Question number 4. Now, what about females, Kurt?
Well, Parlay Pete, I'm going with 3%.
I said 5.
25% of females
No
bet
way.
on sports.
Oh my
That
God.
is the true number per this research.
No way.
All right. Now, 31% of our population reports that they bet on sports, but civic science went a level deeper and asked whether they had a bet. Wow, how did I even do that? But civic science went a level deeper and asked whether they bet on sports very often, somewhat often, or rarely. Question number 5. What percentage of the population say they rarely bet on sports? Ryan.
5%.
Curtis.
Oh my gosh, 82%.
I think we read the question wrong or different.
19% of the population reports they bet on sports rarely. Kurt, how could 81% if we already know that 69% of people never bet on sports?
This is where it got
How could
tricky.
81% rarely bet on sports?
I think he
It has
was
to
rolling.
be smaller than 31%. 31% is our total.
Well,
This
We're
is
looking
where-
at the breakdown
yeah.
of those populations. Let me help you understand this a little bit better in the research world. If you want to understand that 31%, 19% of the population reports they bet on sports rarely. 7% report they bet somewhat often, and 5% say they bet very often on sports.
Uh-huh.
We're diving deeper again. Let's take a look at the difference between the percent of men and women who bet very often on sports. These are worth 1.5 points. Question number 6. What percent of males bet very often on sports? RJ.
5%.
Kurt.
well, Parlay Pete, I got 60%.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Question number 7. What percent of females bet very often on sports? Kurt, what do you got?
Well, Parlay Pete, I got 1%.
RJ.
1%.
5% of females bet very often on sports. That's right, folks. The same percentage of men and women report that they bet on sports very often. Prepare to have some of your minds blown. Maybe this isn't such a one-sided industry, you stereotyping fools.
Yeah, bunch of middle-aged dudes.
I
with
think I might have
windbreakers.
broken Kurt's brain over there. He's staring at the sheet and he doesn't seem to know. He doesn't believe me.
He's trying to
I
figure it
don't
out.
believe you.
You don't believe me? Well, I have real data and he has his skewed views of the world. Let's see who's right. All right. 8% of males bet somewhat often on sports compared to 5% of females who bet somewhat often on sports. And 24% of males rarely bet on sports compared to just 15% of females who rarely bet on sports. So heavy sports bettors, same percentage of men and women.
Interesting.
It's where you have those light bettors. Those are much more heavy males
Male.
and females.
Casuals.
Yeah. For our last section of questions here, let's take a look at how sports bettors are getting their action down. Question number 8, what percentage of the population has placed a bet online? Kurt, what do you got?
Well, Parlay Pete, I'm going with 38%.
Okay, RJ.
15%.
18% of the population has placed a bet online.
Would we bet on this?
This was important, so I did find out. This was as of May 2023. I wanted to clarify that because a lot of these metrics are pretty stable, but that's one that's changing
based
ever
on
rapidly.
availability.
Yep. Question number 9. What percentage of the population has placed a bet in a sports book or casino? Kurt, what do you got?
Well, Parlay Pete, I got 10%.
10%. RJ?
5%.
5%. Kurt, you are correct. The actual answer is 16% of the population has placed a bet in person at a sports book. Last but not least, what percent of the population has placed a bet using a method other than a casino or through an app? That may be a local bookie, bets with your friends, or something of the like. Kurt?
Well, Parlay Pete, I'm going with 42%.
RJ?
Okay.
13% of the population has used a method other than a casino or an app to place a bet.
All right.
Okay, this is a bonus question. This one's worth 3 points in 2 parts, and you guys did not get this, so there is no point for you to look at this. Civic Science released data just before this year's Super Bowl on consumer intent regarding gambling. First question. What percent of the population planned on betting on this year's Super Bowl? RJ.
77%.
Kurt.
7%.
The correct answer is 20% of the population planned on betting on this year's Super Bowl. You have all your baseline metrics.
I don't know. I'm confused now.
You had all your baseline metrics.
He was
Come on,
confused.
Guys. Get
Now
in
I'm
the world of
confused.
consumer researcher. Come on, guys. Here we
I
go.
won.
Lastly, this is where it gets
you trying to
really
score?
weird. No, RJ has beaten you. Are you
I
crazy?
just hit a 3-pointer.
You hit a 1.5. Wait, was that 3 points?
Yeah.
Bonus.
No,
bonus
it's
round.
worth 3 points in 2 parts. The first part was worth 1.5. The second part, lastly, among consumers who plan on gambling on the Super Bowl and who still have holiday shopping debt. Now we're getting deep. We're nerding out. Listen to this, boys. Among consumers who plan on gambling on the Super Bowl and who still have holiday shopping debt, what percentage of them are very concerned about paying back that holiday debt?
0.
1.
34% of the population who plan on betting on the Super Bowl and have holiday shopping debt are very concerned about paying back that holiday debt. Here's why this is so funny and why not funny. 11% of the population who are not planning to bet on the Super Bowl and have holiday shopping debt are very concerned about paying back that holiday debt. So if you're betting on the Super Bowl, you're 3 times as likely to be worried about paying back your holiday shopping debt than if you're not betting on the Super Bowl.
That's fascinating. So that's, it's kind of like you're just in the mind of, you got to hit a parlay banger, I guess, to pay off the Christmas present.
That's crazy.
And in a miraculous turn of events, Kurt has actually ended up winning the first ever game by virtue of RJ picking 0% in the last question. So what did we learn from this conversation, boys? Maybe we don't ignore our female listeners.
I mean,
Absolutely.
where are they at?
Maybe they're not brash and vulgar on Twitter about it. I don't know. There's plenty of them out there. There's plenty of female gamblers out there, and we need to shine the light on them as well.
Yeah.
And then the other takeaway from this is if you do have real debts in your life, don't hope to pay them off with gambling.
Not a good situation. Just try this too.
So,
become a tout.
Parlay Pete, what did I win?
What have I won?
I thought there was a prize.
Oh, man.
Next up, we have Clarke of Sharp Clarke NFL to talk all things football, his process, and how he's gotten to where he is today. Folks, stay tuned for that. Good juju to your bets, and we'll talk again soon. We welcome into the show Sharp Clarke. You can find him on Twitter at Sharp Clarke NFL. That's Clarke with an E. He is an NFL originator. Not yet in his prime, according to his own Twitter bio, making some shifts in his career, and we're excited to learn what we can learn from him. Clarke, welcome to the show, bud. How's it going?
Thanks for having me on. Excited to chat with you guys and learn from you guys as well.
So you were on the Risk Takers podcast with Golden Pants last week. Fantastic interview. I highly recommend everyone check it out if you haven't already. During that interview, you covered some of your backstory and how blackjack led you into betting NFL. I don't want to be redundant with that piece, but you covered your start trying to beat blackjack and how that helped you evolve into an NFL bettor. Now, you also mentioned during that interview that you lived in Colorado. So what are we talking here? You hitting up Blackhawk? Is that where we're doing our primary gambling?
So I only played blackjack when I was younger, and I wasn't in Colorado. So I would lived in Austin and Dallas in Texas, and I would drive over to Shreveport in Louisiana and play at the casinos there back in the day.
So what were you doing down in Texas then?
That's where my family was. That's where I went to school. So I didn't come to Colorado until about 8 years ago and got a job here, and I've been here ever since.
Okay, got it. Can you give us a little backstory in terms of gambling in Shreveport? What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it was just, me and my buddies loved poker. Like, we were right at that age where, I spent more time playing poker than I did going to class by a long shot when I was in college. And so when we hit 21 and we could go to the casinos and play live poker, it was the dream, right? I remember driving across the night that I turned 21. I was the youngest of the group. We drove all night so that at midnight of my birthday, like the next day, we got to the casino and started playing, and we stayed up all night playing poker that night. It was awesome. So it was really just a degenerate, not degenerate, like we thought of ourselves as pretty good. We were trying to win, but there was never any systematic attempt to make any meaningful amount of money doing it.
Right.
But did you?
Yeah, off and on. I definitely was up in poker for a long time, and then probably, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, I just, stopped playing seriously, would play only when I traveled to Vegas or, on trips like that. And so probably lifetime, I'm probably down now because, I just kept playing for fun and with no edge. So I would expect I'm down poker, definitely still up on blackjack, definitely still up on sports betting.
So was it the loss of adrenaline, junkiness, or whatever we want to call it, related to poker that then led your drive into sports gambling?
A little bit. So poker didn't capture my full attention ever. Like I would play for fun, but I knew at every table I was at that I was never going to be good enough to really take it to the next level. It was just never a goal of mine. I think if I had made it a goal and done all the reading and all the studying and all the practicing and all the theorizing, like I think I probably could have been good potentially. I don't know that for sure. I don't know that I have the right skills. I'm not particularly good at reading faces and people, which I know can be part of it. So it's just never really a goal of mine. Whereas sports betting, I think much more appeals to me as a numbers game. And, the NFL in particular is a game that I'm very, very interested in, that I love analyzing and breaking down, understanding the relationships between, the way different teams match up, the way that players on certain teams fit in, the way that schemes go up against each other, the impact of specific players, all these things I just love analyzing, whether it's in theory or in numbers. So I think it was just more of my attention than poker ever got.
And it's one sport, one league, one focus for you entirely, correct?
Entirely, yeah. I have a regular job. It's an 80% full-time job, so not quite full-time, but I don't have enough time to do what I do for the NFL and any other sports. And if I did, I wouldn't be as good at it because I'd be spreading myself too thin. Yeah, no. This week I've spent, probably 20 hours this week on working on my model, like improving it and, analyzing potential theories and things like that. And it's February, right? I'm not paying attention to draft news. It's not even news. It's just speculation. I'm not paying attention to free agency. Like I'll pick that stuff up when it matters.
Exclusively you bet sides, totals, and futures?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I dabbled in some second halves this year, and that went pretty well. I'm kind of working on a more formulaic model for that for next year. And then some other sort of tangential props, but I don't do player props or anything like that.
We find that hard to believe.
That's what I'm sitting here, Josiah.
What do you mean?
Going, we look around us and people exclusively playing sides and totals seems to be a dying breed within the entire world of gambling. You're like a unicorn. I'm looking at you going, wow, we've got one of them.
Right. Like, you sure you don't play NBA props every night? Like,
Yeah, I mean, like everyone is built differently, and for me, it's the toughest challenge, right? It's the most liquid market. You know, the most interest, the biggest bets, and so that market is very, very competitive. And I think if you're dabbling in it as part of an array of things that you're interested in, I don't think you really have a chance to compete. And so, you know, I recognize the difficulty of the task and recognize the level of focus that it takes. And so that's just, I'm like kind of on the spectrum. So like I'm very, very focused person when I'm into something. And so this is just kind of how I operate.
I think it's great. You're tweaking your models right now. Like in February, like the Super Bowl was like last week.
Yeah.
So similar to us, as you've mentioned, you work a day job that has nothing to do with sports gambling. How you balance your professional life, your personal life, and the demands of keeping up as an originator, beating these tightest lines within the industry. Do you have any advice or any recommendations? Because we've talked about this ourselves. To get to a point of being true originators on our own feels like it's beyond the scope, given all the other responsibilities in life for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think having a clear goal of what you're doing is really important. And, you know, like I just gave that whole spiel, like you shouldn't take on originating a major market lightly, right? It shouldn't just be something that you do. And so I have a wife, I'm married, we have no kids. I don't have a ton of friends, especially in the city that I live in. I still have a lot of old friends I keep in touch with and visit, but it's not like a daily commitment. And then my job that I have is fairly flexible in terms of when I work. I can kind of put in my hours, you know, flexibly. I can work from home most days. And so I think all of that. And then my wife is a very career focused woman. So she is, you know, she has her own stuff going on that she's really into. So it's kind of like we both allow ourselves the time to really focus. And I think if you have a certain amount of time to spend and devote to it, and you are good at managing that time, then I think you can really, you know, do a thing well, as long as it's not too much for your plate. It's when you try to do too much that I think you end up, you know, eating into your edges and also eating into your other life values and other things that you want to be spending your time in. So I think it's just understanding how much time you have and how to spend it.
So do you schedule your week with a plan as if this is a part-time job for you with structured set hours and everything along those lines?
Yeah, the hours aren't set in terms of when, but in terms of what I have to do each week, yeah, like I pretty much say, you know, hey, you know, I wake up in the morning, tackle my work emails, anything outstanding, immediate, and then I kind of structure my day based on what I have to do in my competing, you know, jobs. Basically, I treat it like a job.
Clarke, when you first started developing your model, what data points did you start with?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think my answer is probably different than most people because I didn't start with data. I didn't even start with a model. I've been building my model over the course of the years. So back up. My original thought was basically just a way to analyze game film and then build that into metrics. And so because I was creating my own metrics, I didn't have any data because I hadn't done it, right? So started doing this in 2019 just informally. And then every year since then, I've sort of improved, you know, aspects of the metrics that I'm building and building a database of data that I can then use to build a model. So the first time I actually had a model based on my data was this past season. And so that's why I'm still working on my model in February. It's like I've got a lot of work to do before I feel like it's really in final form. And so it's been a slow process of gathering data over the years to the point where I have enough to really, you know, build a robust model and then improve it and find ways that I can tighten it.
So did you get the Game Pass and just start watching as much film as you possibly could?
Yeah, exactly. I watch all the film.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's
that
fantastic.
takes so much time.
Like, you know, we've had this conversation before, and it's always like, scrape this type of data and do this and Ken Palm and the other thing. Yeah, go ahead.
If you've been betting the NFL for 4 years profitably, and you've been working with the data and pulling your own metrics over that time, but you only believe you've really gotten to the model portion of that this season. What's going on in those 3 years before that? Like, what are you working with to get an output that you were betting against to get favorable results then?
So that has evolved as well. In the first year, it was literally, I watched this game, and the conclusions that people are reaching about this game are incorrect. Here's why. Sometimes, even though people might be talking about a game a certain way, the line is like, no, obviously the line represents the way that I saw the game, so there's no value. But sometimes I say, no, this team is mispriced because of this, or one of the things that I was collecting data on is sort of understanding when teams with certain profiles, like I can't really get into it too much, but like teams with certain elements about them in certain situations are projected to perform better or worse than their baseline expectation. And so basically finding those spots, not so much like I make this -7 as much as I expect this team to outperform its market expectations. And so if the market says it's -7, I just trust that that's low, right? And so that over time has been built into a numerical model where I can actually quantify. So when I say this past season was the first season where I implemented a model, it means it was the first season where I was like, my model says this game has this median outcome. This is what the spread should be. And so as opposed to just finding the spots where I think that there's value on or against a team.
How much are you weighting NFL referee crews?
None right now.
None right now. Is that going to be implemented soon?
I don't know. Maybe.
What a random thing. Why are you asking so randomly?
That's huge.
Okay.
That is huge. A lot. If you read a lot of Twitter on just originators, referee crews are a huge part of capping. They affect the outcomes of games.
And I've heard that for baseball, for sure.
Oh yeah,
Balls and
absolutely.
strikes, right?
Absolutely. Pitchers and umps. Yeah. Same thing for NFL referees.
Like more pass interference or something, I guess.
Yeah, they all have their own data points.
Okay, Clark, do you have an opinion on this guest?
I think that it probably matters, but I don't currently incorporate it. There are several elements of the game that definitely impact the outcomes. The question is, can you reliably predict how they're going to impact the outcomes? Another one is special teams. Like special teams impacts outcomes big time, but thus far I've not found a way to make special teams predictable, at least even approaching the amount that it can impact the game. And referee crews is the same way. So it's something that once my central model has been finished, it's like I can add onto it with these type of data, and then I can go back. The key is that I've got my metrics for those games. And so to the extent that things like referees or special teams impact things, I can then go and back test, adding that, seeing if it's statistically significant and whether or not I should add it into my model.
So then you spent 3 years. It feels more like a system to me. Like it was a system play you were operating where you were taking this data, bringing in it, utilizing the model. Then you go through this year, and I found your story this season to be one of the more fascinating ones on gambling Twitter, where you came into the season, you were partnering with 4for4, correct? Was that all season long?
Yeah, 4for4.com, yeah.
Yeah. And so you come into the season with your model, and you've had 3 consecutive winning years, and you go through the season and you hit November 14th and you post an update to your audience on Twitter, highlighting the fact that you were down at the time 22 units. Very human interaction. This has been hard. This has been brutal, but I still am putting in place what I believe to be a strong, true process. When I look at the metrics, I still believe where I'm at from a model perspective, and just being very transparent and open in that moment. And from that moment on, you went on a heater unlike almost no other. A month and a half later, on December 29th, you post an update. Your 22 units down was suddenly 5 units down. Then you post an update after the Super Bowl with your final season numbers, and it turns out you were up 8 units on the year overall. First of all, do I have that story correct?
For the most part. Couple quick clarifications. 2021, I actually lost just under 2 units.
Okay, I was going to call you flat that unit. I did have it in my notes.
Yeah.
Really
And then the other clarification would just be, so the tracking numbers are my public bets, right? What I'm giving out.
Right.
So these are always best, only lines that are available at several major books at -110. Like I'm not picking off good numbers. I'm not releasing if it's only available at a few books. And so privately, my numbers in all of those instances were better than what they were publicly. So yes, those were my public record giving out bets to make sure everyone can get access to them.
All right. But before we get into that, be honest here. You care more about those public bets you're putting out than you do about that personal bet you're placing, don't you?
I used to before this season. So this season was the tipping point where the size of my personal bets was much more significant to me than the reputation from having a good record. The other element of that is one of the main reasons I was posting publicly bets, tracking and making sure everyone could see it, was I wanted people to see what I was doing and that it worked. And so around halfway through the season, I got, some people reached out to me about partnering and scaling up. And so I had kind of accomplished my main goal, which was to gain the credibility. And so now I no longer need to prove myself. Like, I have those connections that I've been seeking.
Do you think you're going to miss that at all? The public picks part of this? Or are you glad to be moving on from that portion of the game?
I think overall I'm glad to be moving on. I mean, I really like the community aspect, and I really like, people that have, like, I got all these messages when I said that I was no longer doing it. They're like, hey, I've been reading your write-ups and I really love it. And it's like, I don't even always follow your bets, but I just love reading them. And like, I'm really sad that you're going to not be doing that anymore. And so I will miss those connections. But I think that overall the pressure and the sort of like, feeling responsible for like the ups and downs of other people is much more difficult than handling the ups and downs myself. And so I think knowing that, when there's a bad beat at the end of the game, people that followed my bet don't give a shit that it was a bad beat, that it was the right read. They don't give a shit that the starting quarterback I bet on got injured in the first quarter. And so those things are just a lot easier to deal with when it's like, okay, yeah, it's variance. Like I was on, I got CLV, I feel good about the handicap, whatever it is. That's just a lot easier to handle when it's just me and a spreadsheet and my betting partners.
Yeah, and you understand that. And it's not like, a bunch of people on the internet that like just discovered you yesterday. And it's I thought this guy was supposed to be good.
Yeah, in hindsight, I think it was a little naive of me, like to assume that everybody has the same level of understanding of how betting works. Like one thing that I always do is when I've released bets throughout my, time at releasing, is I say at the bottom of the bet, I say 0.2% to win 2% bankroll. Yeah. And so, and that's actually what a unit is. A unit is 1%. So basically I'm telling people like how much of the NFL bankroll they should be risking on this bet. And so when I was down 22 units, I was down 22% of my bankroll. And I think if you think of it as an investment and you're down, 22%, like that sucks, but it's whatever. Investments go up and down. You can deal with it. I'm not like panicking about the state of my bankroll. And so I think when other people, they don't listen to that, right? Mm-hmm. And so I got messages from people being like, oh, I gave up on your picks, and then I went to someone else and then they were losing and then you started winning. And so like having the reality of like people don't follow my bets and don't follow my advice and don't follow my bankroll management advice. And so I think the reality of that makes it a bit harder to feel good about giving out picks that go up and down.
Yeah.
So when your public plays crossed over from negative to positive, did you celebrate?
I did, but I didn't boast on Twitter. I waited till after the Super Bowl.
Okay. All right. But internally, you did a little mini fist pump for yourself.
I mean, by the end of the season, I was fist pumping every week. It was like, I think I had a very rough week 18 this year, which is ironic because that's usually a good week for me. But other than that, it was like, so I have a ritual where each week I drink whiskey at the end of a Sunday night, because by Sunday night, you can tell in the NFL how your week's going. Like, it's very rare that Monday night's going to make or break your week. And I would either drink the, like the Woodford Reserve, which is a good whiskey. I'm not saying that's a bad whiskey. I really, really like it, but it's not super rare or expensive. Or I drink the fancy whiskey, the expensive whiskey, and it depends on how I did that week. And so I was having a lot of nice rituals with the fancy whiskey by the end of the year.
Did you have to get another bottle because of it?
No, but it's almost out.
All right. Now, one of the things that we do like and appreciate about you is the fact that you come off as genuine, sincere, transparent, all the kind of hallmarks that we look for in cappers that are working in the public space. We've also seen a lot of other cappers come into the space and a lot of conversation around the sketchier elements of the trade. If you don't mind, what's your take on specifically on the Sean Perry situation? Because we've heard about him all last week. His Twitter account's now gone. This is an individual who made a big splash coming in, doing well in Circa Survivor, then flaming out after he didn't take the chop. Which, for those in the audience who are wondering, there was a situation where for $9.2 million, I think there were 9 people left or 11, something along that. Everyone except for one person agreed to chop the pot so everyone walk away equally. That one person then lost, I believe, 1 or 2 weeks after that, didn't get any of the money, but built himself up a pretty big following on Twitter as a result.
He was a total dick about it.
He then cashed in that Twitter credibility with a series of very big, bold proclamations that resulted in betting on the 49ers to win the Super Bowl for $1 million or something like that.
Well, you know how that went.
It lost a week later. His Twitter account's gone.
Yeah.
So.
But he got CLV from -1.5 to -2.
So he probably did win there. So what's your take on cappers such as that in the space?
Okay, first of all, my take is -1.5 to -2 is not CLV. But anyway, I don't really have a specific take on Sean Perry. I don't know his operation. I don't know whether he wins. What I do know is that in my experience, ego is a massive, massive block to being successful in any form of competitive gambling, if not the biggest block. And it's something that I struggle with and something that I'm constantly working on. And he presents himself as someone as having a very large ego. Mm-hmm. And so with no knowledge, I'm not saying I know for sure he's losing, because that's not how evidence works, but it just makes me less likely to believe him when he's carrying himself that way. But I've heard good things about his ability to play poker well. I think he was a good poker player apparently. I don't know anything about his handicapping process, so I can't speak to that. I'm not a big fan of judging people based on results. Yes, he lost he lost $1 million on the Super Bowl, on the 49ers. Could have easily won that bet. That's fine. I judge people on their process, and I know nothing about his process. But I would be more inclined to believe that he's, ego gets in the way. The other thing is, I read that article about him, and he said that he was bragging about some dude was almost divorcing his wife because he had no money left, and he was subscribing to Sean Perry's picks, and he went on a run and saved his marriage because he was gambling on Sean Perry's picks. And I'm like, that is disgusting. That is so horrible to think about for me. I would never brag about that. And if someone came to me in that situation, I'd be like, not only should you not pay me for picks, you should not be gambling at all.
Right.
This is a game with variance, and you're not in a place where you should be experiencing that variance. So yeah, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. That's about all I got on Sean Perry.
That's very icky.
Nor is that how marriage works. That's not, oh babe, okay, you won a few bets.
Hey,
let's
guess what?
keep it together.
Right. I got hot.
But in general, let me ask this then. You come off as very genuine. You go through these kind of struggles, if you will, during the course of a season, and you find yourself facing much of the same black backlash, that you see from more of these disgenuine cappers. And I don't mean to call out specifically necessarily Sean Perry, because you're right. I don't know him personally or know what his process is, but that sort of inability to utilize math, data, and research behind the rationale, or to give that at its face, sort of is an element that still permeates itself pretty broadly, in my opinion, in social media and from a lot of cappers and from a lot of things along those lines. So I guess what I'm just kind of curious from your perspective is there anything you see, or is there anything that, kind of stands out when you're evaluating how you operated versus how these other individuals operate, for folks to keep an eye out for?
Yeah, it's a great question. Honestly, I don't spend any time thinking about other handicappers, especially ones that market themselves for picks, because I'm just not interested in buying picks. But I think the number one thing you should be here would be my advice, is if anyone's considering signing up with one of these people, myself included, is one, with no exceptions, they should have a documented track record that is, verified as accurate. Whether there's many forms of doing that. I don't want to get into all the details, but basically they should be they should be wanting to give you as much information as possible about what they've done in the past, how they got to where they are, right? Anyone who's cagey tries to hide it, makes it hard to find, like red flag automatic, right? So transparency is number one. Two is you should understand how the person wins. Like, what is their process? And I understand that most of these people aren't going to give away their biggest edges. Like, they're not going to say, I'm not going to tell you like how I grade film, what my metrics are, or whatever. But I can tell you like what I'm doing, right? I'm watching all the film. I'm creating my own metrics. I'm using a unique model because no one else has those metrics. And, based on that process plus the track record, like you can choose whether or not to believe me, but you know what you're buying into. Like, okay, this is the work that this person's doing. If they just give picks with no explanation and that's it, and then they just, post, hey, I went 3-0 today, like come join me. It's like, well, why? Like, what are you doing that is more successful than, the market? Like, what gives you your edge? So you should understand that. And then 3, I think you should just like the person, right? Like you have a relationship with this person. It's a business relationship, but it's a relationship. So if you have all 3 of those things, they're ultimately transparent. They want to give you as much information as possible. They are, you understand their process enough to know that it can win, and then you like the person, then I think fine. Like, as long as it's within your budget, within your means, like by all means buy picks. I'm never going to do that, but everyone should be able to make their own choices.
I'm glad you said that third part, because that's something I've talked about kind of a lot while we go through this journey.
I was just going to say that.
And nobody talks about that. Like, nobody brings up like how somebody like talks or like, what their presentation is on Twitter and like their interaction with you or whatever. Right. And like, that's so important.
So the whole bit behind our podcast, Clarke, is the focus on the entertainment of it and making sure that you're being responsible and getting the most you can out of the hobby, but having fun with it as well. So when you hit on that third point about tailing people who you like and who you want to interact with, that's probably my number one. If you just come off with a certain aura about you, I don't care if you make money. I'm not interested.
Which is probably why you don't like Sean Perry.
I barely know Sean.
Yeah, right. He just showed up in your ecosystem last week.
And there are people that openly don't win, like Book It with Trent, that people just love to follow, right? Like I think there's this sort of hive mind within sharp betting community that are like solely focused on winning and maximizing profit, which you kind of have to be to make a living gambling, right? I understand why people think that way, but that is such a small fraction of the betting population, and there's so many people out there that just want to have fun. And that's the thing, is like 4 for 4 was where I worked. The subscriptions, you get a season long NFL subscription for $125, and you get, my bets, you get Connor Allen and Ryan Noonan. They both do NFL props, like player props and stuff. They've been successful for years. They, very good documenting track record. You get, all kinds of tools that have like, odds screens and player prop finders and, matchup tendencies and all this kind of stuff for $125 for the whole season. Like most bettors, that's not going to destroy your budget. I when people were interested in signing up, I would tell them, I would say, hey, do you bet at least $20 a game? Because if so, then I think it's fine. This is a fine service to purchase. But if you bet less than that, I would say just skip. It's not worth it for you. You're going to be eating in too much of your bankroll doing this. So like when I see people, charging, it's like $99 a day and like $1,500 for the month or whatever, I'm just like, the odds that you're winning by such a wide margin and that people can get down that much money without getting limited because they're chasing steam, essentially, if they're playing a very popular service that's moving the lines, like it just diminishes your capability to do that. But for most people, like a service like 4 for 4 is for casual gamblers that like fantasy football and betting on games and betting on players, right? And so my role there was to try to sharpen up some of the side stuff, and I think I did that. But I just think context is really important.
And when it's coming from trusted sources such as 4 for 4 or a reputed service, then your small investment you at least know is coming with the information, the research, and everything that goes along with it. Unlike when you're throwing your money kind of in the wind and hoping it comes back to you with someone that you don't know their history.
You get picks in a telegram or something, and it's like, here you go.
Right.
Here's my 9 bangers.
And this is why, like, I've never really, even though I was marketing myself with primarily picks, like I never really thought of myself as a tout, because like tout service to me is like Gonzaga -8, good to whatever. And it's like, that's all you're getting, is you're just getting the pick, you're getting the good to, and then over the course of time, you're hoping to win. But it's like, I would write paragraphs and paragraphs on my write-ups, and then like interact with people in the chat and like answer follow-up questions and talk about my process, talk about bankroll management. Like, it was so much more than just, giving the picks. And I think that's a big part of it is having a community, like a gambling community can be fun. And that's why I think Discord has become such a, natural place for, gambling communities to form.
Yeah. How much more fulfilling for the end user too? Like being a part of that community. Right. Like that's part of like the entrance fee, right?
It's like you get to play with the team.
It's
like you're sitting on the bench with the team and you get to play along. I love it. Okay, Clarke. Okay, all right. Real quick.
Let's get back on track.
Get back on track. All right. Looking ahead to next season, what kind of research are you working on today?
So I'm teaching myself statistics more deeply. So I have a textbook that I'm reading and doing the studying for, so that I can understand and build my models better. There's obviously so many different ways to analyze statistics, and there's different ways to play with it. And I think the more I'm learning, the more I realize like how complex some of this stuff is. So that's my like immediate focus, is getting my spreads model in shape, in better shape. That the eventual end goal, I've mapped out all I'm going to do. It's going to take weeks, but the ultimate end goal is going to be like fair money line price, and then fair spread, and then alternate spreads at various levels. So like, minus 150, minus 200, minus 250, minus 300, to get a sense of historical or projected distributions, because distributions are not normal in the NFL. There are elements that create skewed projections. And so I think getting into the depth of that and really learning how to price that will lead to a more effective model that I can kind of attack various markets with.
Have you started betting into next year's markets? You bet NFL futures, correct?
I do, but I haven't yet this year. Part of it is just the time value of money, especially in an inflationary environment. You could have just put it in Bitcoin yesterday and you would have made whatever. But at this point, it would have to be a super long shot to minimize the impact of that decaying value of money, right? Like risk a little to win a lot. And it would have to be a long shot that I think is going to be materially priced differently in June, right? So it has to be something where a team like last year, right? Atlanta was 40-1 to win the NFC. And there were these rumors about Lamar Jackson maybe going to Atlanta, and I was aware of their schedule and the rest of their team. And I was like, okay, if Lamar Jackson goes to Atlanta, 40-1 is absolutely ludicrous. So I bet it, and it was a losing bet, obviously. But it's the type of thing that I'm looking at this early in the offseason. It has to be something where one thing changes and the price is materially different. I know some people did that when Tom Brady came back from retirement too.
When do you find yourself targeting those NFL future wagers?
It depends on how long it takes to work on my model. So I think last year I really started getting into it maybe May, and then I at some point, basically after the draft, after most of free agency, when teams starts to solidify what these teams are going to look like, then I start to go one team at a time. I usually spend 3 or 4 days on each team. I go through their prior season or seasons, if applicable, like same coach, same quarterback, things like that. I look at every game. I look at the metrics to understand, what made this team tick, what elements did it have, what has changed in the offseason, how should that impact them next year? And then I look at their schedule, and then try to sort of get a sense of where I feel about the team heading into the season. I do that for every team, and by the time I'm done with that, it's like, preseason starts, and then it's time to go.
Off to the races.
And then 4 weeks later, everything I thought is JuJu.
Are you considering looking into the player prop markets moving forward?
Yeah, and I actually, I'll be fair, I dabbled, right? So this year this was almost exclusively passing yardage props for quarterbacks. But I would bet 1/10 of the size of my unit on sides on player props. But I probably did it like 15 or 16 times in the whole year. I didn't have a model. It was just by nature of my metrics, passing is like the thing that I'm most comfortable predicting. And so I think if I can get to a place with my main spread model, or when I get to a place with my main spread model that I feel confident in and start running it, over some prior seasons data, then I'm going to start building into other ancillary markets and actually modeling them. Player props would not be my first target, but it is something that is sort of on my working board.
Because I would think that with as much film as you watch, that is such an advantage. I would love to find someone who would be able to break down matchups, wide receiver, corner, tight end, linebackers. I think watching film is a skill, and it's something that you get better at the more you do. And somebody who could pick out exploitable matchups for specifically player props, I think that's invaluable in this community that we're in. And I don't see anybody doing that, really. I know there's data on certain matchups, but nobody really breaking down the film for it.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I don't know if anyone does it. I think one of the reasons is because film grading is very time consuming, and the amount of money you can make on player props is necessarily capped. But I do think that there's an opportunity for that. The problem is with my metrics is they're so team focused. And so things like individual cornerback, wide receiver matchups aren't something that my metrics are capturing as well as so much as it is for example, I really care about how many open receivers there are, right? But I don't care necessarily about which receiver it is, or, which defender was lined up on him, or even on that play, whether it was man or zone. I prefer to understand the way teams operate generally, and then use my metrics to say, okay, well, they outperformed against this team, and this team runs a lot of zone. They outperformed against this team runs a lot of zone. And because of the way that I build my metrics, I can answer that question about outperformance better than just looking at the data right? Looking at the EPA per play and the play-by-play data. So my goal is more so to understand when the teams are better or worse, not so much which players are thriving in which situations. So sometimes I do stumble along individual angles, but it's not my focus.
Yeah. I know you don't tail other people too often, if ever. Bears draft Caleb Williams, number 1 overall, likely win the NFC next year. So take that one to the bank if you want. And get it in quick, because dozens of people are going to listen to this in 24 hours, and the line's probably going to move.
Oh, it just moved 20%.
Yeah.
Tell us why the Bears won't win the Super Bowl next year with Caleb Williams.
Very, very, very difficult for a rookie quarterback to win the Super Bowl.
Right. I said the NFC.
So you're saying our expectations are a little too high when we don't even know 100% that they're drafting him?
I don't know. So here's the thing. I don't watch college football. After the draft, when I get to the Bears, if it's the Bears that draft him, I'm sure it will be, part of my process for analyzing the Bears will be watching Caleb Williams highlights and not just good highlights, but film. And one of the things that's really interesting is with how much I watch NFL football, it's really easy for me to watch college football and be like, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. That matters. That matters. That doesn't matter. And so I don't consider myself to be a great college scout because I don't watch enough film. But once I understand the situation, I understand, okay, this Bears offense that I know well, now I can picture Caleb Williams in that offense. Now I'm going to watch his film with a blank slate, no preconceived notions, no draft profile, no hype. I know nothing about Caleb Williams. Absolutely nothing. People post stuff. I'm like, I don't know whether to believe this guy. I don't care. When I know the situation and I can picture it, then I watch the film. Then I form my own opinions. And so, as of now, I don't have an answer on the Bears. Maybe I'm missing the boat. Maybe I should be. But we'll see.
We're homeless.
Does free agency or any big off-season trades, do you apply the same principle as far as you said, going to look at Caleb Williams' film after he gets drafted? Any big trades or any big free agent pickups, does that kind of steer you into watching film from the player of the previous team?
Definitely. I mean, all players matter, but the most important player is quarterback, right? So anybody that has a new quarterback, any team that is, like Desmond Ridder, like this season, it was important to understand who Desmond Ridder was going in to have any opinion on the Falcons. Jordan Love, same thing. Kenny Pickett, we didn't have a lot of data on him. Like these young guys is where I'm spending most of my off-season film watching because I really want to understand the tendencies in their game. And I'm not watching film of Patrick Mahomes. Like I have a very, very strong understanding of who he is as a player. I don't need to.
Your pinned tweet's my favorite. You're right. You should hear us react to the Super. For those who don't obviously know what his pinned tweet is I've been on the pro side of the Mahomes argument since 2021, and that means I've been on the right side of the argument since 2021, or whatever that is. I'm sorry, I butchered your tweet.
Love it.
It's all good. You can go to my profile. He did butcher it. It's all good.
We did after the Super Bowl, when we were recapping the Super Bowl, go through the fact that it was like, everyone who was just like, Mahomes, man, came through in the end, and they were right once again.
They were right.
Yeah, like 4 times.
True. Thank you once again for joining us, Clarke. You can find Clarke on Twitter at Sharp Clarke NFL. Anything else you'd like to say before we let you go?
Just, remember what's most important to you. Never get too caught up in the gambling,
Enjoy the ride.
Love it. Everyone enjoy the rest of your week. We'll talk again soon.